Welcome. Find your seats. Those last-minute conversations in the parking lot. Anyway, it's great to have you all here, and we are in for another great treat. Matthew knocked it out of the park, and let's hear it for Matthew one more time. And Euan Stevenson, as those of you who've heard him before, is going to knock it out of the park too. He brought some help this time. Euan is a Scottish pianist. I'm going to read this part of it because I always get this stuff wrong, and then I'll tell a story. Euan is a Scottish pianist and composer whose work challenges the boundaries between classical and jazz styles, and also tap dance. But that was last time. He's performed in concerts and master classes throughout the UK, Europe, and the United States, and his music is regularly featured on radio, television, and even in film. He's worked with some of the top jazz players in the UK and singers in the UK and US. He first performed, it was March 2017, that long ago. We had a show by a young artist who's a friend, but also a very fine artist named Alistair Gordon. And if you know your Scots, that's a Scottish name. He is from Scotland, and so we wanted to have a Scottish performer. So Allie wouldn't feel too lonely. So, and Steve Ferguson had heard a band at the Cumnock Tryst, which is in Scotland, and we kept trying to get this band, and no one would ever respond. And so we didn't really know what we were going to do. And so I called my friend Ken Tamplin, who is a rock and roll human, who knows all things musical, and is now making millions, actually, teaching singing online. So if you're looking for a singing career, Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, you look it up, but he's doing well. He doesn't really need you. At any rate, so I call up the Tamplin, and I say, Ken, we need a Scottish, I prefer a pianist. And so he said, he called, and jazz. I want jazz. Jazz and piano, okay? So a few days go by, and he calls back, and he said, I've found the guy. I said, okay, you found the guy. And he said, yeah, I've found the guy. And I said, well, okay, so who is the guy? And he said, Euan Stevenson. Everybody says he's the best. I said, great. And Euan is still recovering from his conversation with Ken Tamplin. For those of you who know Ken, you know why he would need to recover. At any rate, so that's how we got Euan the first time, in fact, something, maybe he'll tell the story. One of the songs that he's going to do tonight is a result of a conversation we had. Am I right? Yes. Because I let slip something about my father, and I didn't even dream. Euan remembered it. And then it was the same year? Was it the same year you came back to do the tap dance? Gosh, that was fast. Anyway, I thought it was... Anyway, so we got Euan and Andrew Nemmers, who I think you remember. Andrew's been here a couple of times, who is to tap dance what, I don't know, what Michelangelo is to sculpture. I mean, he's just Mr. Tap Dance. And so, along with this tonight, there will be piano interludes, and then we'll hear some premiere performances of several choral works, one of which was specially commissioned for this concert, Cloths of Heaven, by a little-known Scottish poet named William Butler Yeats. It happens to be, you're right, he is Irish, but he's Celtic. Okay, you're right. I knew that. Well, it's up there. They talk. Anyway, I'm sorry. Oh, my brain cells are dying faster than I realized. Yes, no, he's Irish, but it was big of Euan to want to do an Irish poet's song, okay? Okay, because we're all about generosity and Whatever. Okay, I should quit talking. I'll only make it worse. At any rate, it's one of my favorite poems of all time, and it's good if I can remember what country the poet came from. And with the performing with Euan on the choral pieces will be the Choral Arts Initiative, which is, its musical director is Brandon Elliott, who is here, and the assistant conductor is Daniel G., who are both here, so we'll see them later. I got the wrong, oh, you're over there, okay. Somewhere, okay. I just met these guys. And I didn't just meet William Butler Yeats, but anyway. The Choral Arts Initiative is based in Irvine and specializes in the performance of new choral works. So we welcome them to our establishment. We're very happy to have them here with us. And with that, I think I should sit down before I confuse the nationality or ethnicity of anyone else. With that, I give you Euan Stevenson.
There's a quote by one of my favourite piano players, Keith Jarrett, great American pianist. He plays both jazz and classical music. And when I read his autobiography in my late teens, I think it was, I remember this line clearly. And he said, every piece of Western classical music is a hymn. And it kind of baffled me at the time. I thought, well, every piece is a hymn. And it's taken a long time for me to try and suss this out, but if you think of the dictionary definition of a hymn, it's a song in praise of God. And if you look at the classical composers of the last 400 years, most of them have written music as a servant to God. They've written their music to praise God, but I think also to come into contact with Him. They're searching for something transcendent. And I think for me, that's the longing part. So I've called this set of music hymns of praise and longing, and there's a longing theme. Every piece that we're playing here is some kind of hymn. I'm going to play a piece, I think I've played it here before, but as Louis Armstrong said, jazz is music that's played the same way. It's never played the same way once. So it will be completely different. And it's called Leonard's Lament. And I think I told you a funny story about dedicating this piece to Leonard Lament and wrongfully saying that it was in memory of Leonard Cohen when he was still alive. But it's an early piece that I wrote in my early 20s. And it's funny, when I sit down to start to write music, the first thing that comes to mind is always some kind of hymnal melody. Now maybe that's something to do with Jarrett's quote. But it's also a reflection of my formative musical influences. So from very early years, I had to, at the time I resisted, my parents would take me to church every Sunday in Falkirk. And what I really didn't like about it was that I had to wear the kilt. My mother insisted that I wear a formal dress for church, so I had to get dressed in a kilt every Sunday. So that was the bane of my life at the time. But what I now realise is that hearing the organ at church every Sunday was a massive formative influence in terms of how I understood music. Because hymns we can go into this later, but I'll just tell you that now, it was a massive formative influence. So when I wrote Leonard's Lament, it's like a hymn, but then around the same time I was getting into John Coltrane. You might laugh, but John Coltrane was also a deep spiritual person, and he was pursuing God through his music. But very different to standing up in a very stilted manner in Scotland singing a hymn. John Coltrane's music is much freer and looser. And if you know John Coltrane's arrangement of My Favourite Things, again, quite an unlikely source to go for a very, Julie Andrews, very prim and proper. John Coltrane transforms this tune into this modal dirge, but it's the rhythmic energy of the way that group plays that piece that caught my ears. So this is like if you can imagine, it's like a Scottish psalm combined with the driving rhythm of McCoy Tyner and Elvin Jones and Jimmy Garrison. So a kind of jazz swing, 3/4 feet, Leonard's Lament. going to now get the choir back to perform the commissioned piece for tonight, which, as Roberta said, is the Scottish poet W.B. I think we should claim him. Celtic. So W.B.H's Beautiful Cloths in Heaven. To give you an idea, I had the temerity to ask Roberta if she would set some text for me, or source some text for me. And she duly sent me over 5 or 6 wonderful pieces of poetry. It was hard to choose, but the process came down to me sitting at the piano and reading through the text and seeing if anyone would jump out, any melodies. And the truth is that normally my composition process is quite tortured, and it takes a long time to come up with things. And for some reason, with Cloths of Heaven, a melody just, as I read the text, the melody appeared. I thought, this is not right, this is too easy. Start again, it's got to be more difficult. But sure enough, I kept coming back to it, and this melody appeared. So I thought, well, it's got to be, got to go with this initial instinct. So that was it. It's the first idea that came to mind, and that's what was set down. The other reason Cloths of Heaven was a light bulb for me was that it was a poem that I was actually familiar with, from an unusual source. I don't know how many of us here are familiar with Welsh rugby in the 1970s. Any specialists? Okay, well, this might be lost on you, but when I was a teenager, I was obsessed with Welsh rugby history, particularly the 70s. And if you want to see art on a sports field, go and check out the Welsh rugby team in the 1970s. It's unbelievable to watch. I used to watch it almost slow motion. But there's a very fine winger called Gerald Davis, and he was actually a very eloquent writer. He was a journalist. And I read all their autobiographies, every Welsh rugby player. So I got to the end of Gerald Davis's autobiography, and he finished it with this line, and it said, "Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams." And the line was, that's a beautiful line, and it just jumped out. So that was lodged in my memory when Roberta sent the text, and there it was. So, anyway, that was enough talk, so we're going to sing it now. This is W.B. Yeats' poetry set to music, Cloths in Heaven.
I
for Choral Arts Initiative, the premiere of that. Who knows Dvorak's Ninth Symphony, particularly the Largo theme? Almost everyone, I hope. In the UK, the great Ridley Scott, the great filmmaker Ridley Scott, has tarnished the Largo theme for many of us in the UK because he produced a very good advert actually for Hovis bread. So everyone in the UK, if you say, do you know Dvorak's Ninth? They say, no, I don't know that one. Do you know the Hovis advert? Oh yeah, I know that one. The reason I mention it is because, well, first of all, let me just play the first bar so you know definitely what I'm talking about. It's, so you now know it. The common thinking on this is that Dvorak lifted that melody from a Negro spiritual called Going Home. So he does what all good composers do, he steals shamelessly. But the reason I want to mention it is because if ever there was a hymn of longing, then Going Home is that one. And of course, if that music was born out of slavery, and the Scots have not got a great track record in slavery, I'm afraid, but if the hymn was born out of slavery, then it is no wonder that the sentiment of the piece, as well as the lyric, is about going home. It's a longing for home. The great jazz trumpet player Wynton Marsalis has another great quote. He was asked, how do you define jazz? And he said, well, jazz is the freedom of swing combined with the passion of the blues. And I really think that says it all. The freedom of swing is what drew me to jazz, and that the swing feel that you don't hear in any other music. It's so infectious and joyous. And then the blues, the passion of the blues, there's a suffering element in it. But people don't play the blues in order to suffer more. They play the blues to alleviate suffering. But there's definitely that balance between something joyful and something painful, or praise and longing. Again, these kind of paradoxes. Billy Taylor, or Dr. Billy Taylor, a great jazz piano player that played with Charlie Parker in the 40s, and was a great ambassador for jazz, wrote a hit song in the 50s called I Wish I Knew How It Feel to Be Free. And from the title you can tell that it's a song about freedom of slavery, perhaps. And sounds like a spiritual, but with his jazz sensibilities, then adding the swing feeling, it transforms it. And Nina Simone had a great version of that back in the 60s. And again, she was a great civil rights activist. So I'm going to play I Wish I Knew How It Feel to Be Free, because I want to play some swing music. And this is a hymn of longing, but you'll hear the joy as well, I hope. We're going to move to the piece that Roberta mentioned was inspired by, I think, just quite a casual throwaway comment that, do you remember uttering the words? Yeah. You did? Oh, she did. Well, it wasn't that casual. But it was the end of a night. I think it was the first time I was here, and we'd been out and had a great time. And we're in the car, and Roberta was recounting stories about her father. She was talking about how he was as a father. And it was so interesting. And then she summarised by saying, when all's said and done, he knew how to love. And I thought, wow, that's a great phrase. I like that, he knew how to love. So I wrote it down, or punched it into my iPhone, as we do nowadays. And I went back to Scotland, and I worked with a writing partner. We write songs together. Her name's Georgia Cecile, great singer as well. And I said, look, I've got this title, and I think we could make a song, and the song's going to be about paternity. So Georgia took the title, and she started a lyric, and she brought it back to me, and I looked at this thing, I was thinking, where did she copy this from? This is out of the ordinary. This is really good stuff. So then I waded in with my input on the lyric and added some things and changed some things, and we got this lyric that we were really happy with. And then we sat down at the piano and worked out a melody and harmony, and before we knew it, after a few days, we had a song called He Knew How to Love, which we have recorded. We've got versions of this song. And I thought, well, Roberta needs to know about this, because we were playing this song to a few people in the industry, and we were getting lots of very positive feedback. I said, this is really special, this song. It's got something. So I sent the text to Roberta. I said, look, I just want you to know that I've written this song. It was inspired by what appeared like a throwaway comment. I was also worried. I was thinking maybe Roberta's going to get royalties for this. And so, yeah, I was thinking, what have I done? So, luckily, she was very gracious, and she thanked me for doing it. So, but the proof will be in the pudding. And although this isn't the standard version of the song, this is an arrangement I wanted to do for choir. We've got the perfect vehicle for that with Choral Arts Initiative. So here we go with, and again, this piece again is very hymnal. So again, Mr. Jarrett is absolutely right. Here's He Knew How to Love. mentioned earlier my Sunday ritual of going to church in a kilt. It was Erskine Church in Falkirk, not the parish church in Falkirk. I discovered that the artist Craigie Aitchison, I think there are some paintings in the gallery, Craigie Aitchison's grandfather was the minister at Erskine Church in Falkirk. It's a strange coincidence. As I said, what did church teach me in terms of music? It was the musical language of hymns, this idea of chords moving from a sense of home and then moving away to somewhere away from home and then coming back, and that's this idea of this longing. My favourite hymn growing up was For Those at Peril on the Sea. Do we know that? It's the Eternal Father. And I think it's used by the navies throughout the world. But let me just demonstrate this idea of home and away with that hymn. Thank you. My Californian geography is not good enough to use Californian towns to explain. So I'm going to use towns in Scotland. So we'll start at Erskine Church. This is home. Okay, now we go for a little journey. So we've moved to Edinburgh, where it's quite refined. Okay, and then we start again, we're going to go somewhere else. So we've moved away. Where are we going? We've landed in Glasgow, my hometown now, where it's always grey and miserable. The sun never shines, so it's where the deepest Glasgow. But then we decide, well, let's go away again. So we go back to Falkirk. There's Falkirk. But Falkirk's different now because we're in a different key. Back to Edinburgh. You'll have had your tea, as they say then. And then we go back. And we're back in lovely old Falkirk, provincial town of Falkirk. So does that give you an idea that there's this idea of setting up a home that we're comfortable with, and then what Western classical music does, and in particular hymns, it takes you away. And in my case, this week, coming to sunny California, it's a very pleasant away. But I'm missing my children, and I'm also looking forward to seeing them. So there's a longing for home. And I think music, Western music, perfectly encapsulates that idea of tension release, home and away. So once again, I think Mr. Jarrett's correct. The Great American Songbook is full of gems, where we have 32 bars of incredible mini adventures. And one of my favourite standards is by the great composer Jerome Kern. And I wrote a piece called All the Things You Are. And I think these songwriters, Gershwin, Porter, Kern, I think they used to set each other challenges to keep things interesting, because they were jobbing songwriters. They'd go into the Brill building or wherever they were working, and it'd be a 5-day week, and they'd churn out songs. So they decided, they would do things like, well, let's see if we can rhyme orange with something. Or let's see, in this case, All the Things You Are, I think the challenge was to fit every 12th note of the chromatic scale. So every note had to be accounted for in the melody. Now that's difficult if you're writing a pop song that's to be accessible. But Jerome Kern managed it. It's a great song with an absolutely incredible lyric by Hammerstein. I was meant to write it down so I could read it off to you, and I'm going to have a mind blank now. But I'll just play the music, and if you like the song, you can look at the lyric You are my angel that lights the fire. I think that's the bridge. So all the things you are. It's a great vehicle for jazz players because of this idea that it goes through all the different key centres. So it's great fun to improvise on, which is what we're going to do now. All the things you are. Well, we're almost at the end. I have two more choral pieces to present to you, and they couldn't be more thematic if they tried. The first one is a prelude to the next, and it's called In a Foreign Land. We're going to move to the language of Hebrew. This is based on the text from Psalm 137. You may know by the rivers of Babylon. There we sat down and wept. And again, it's about a displaced people who are longing for home. And and they asked the question, how can we sing the songs of God in a foreign land? So that's the pieces that ask that question. And then to answer that, immediately we have a piece that typifies joy and praise, and it's called Music to the Lord, for he hath done excellent things. And again, this is all in Hebrew, and it's from Isaiah 12, and I've borrowed a few lines from that. And it's essentially, make music to the Lord, for he has done excellent things. So the answer being, okay, things are tough, but we can still celebrate God regardless of where we are. So here we are, this is our final two pieces. Before I close, I'd like to say thank you to some key people, and I will miss out a few, no doubt, so please don't be offended. But first of all, I'd like to thank Howard and Roberta for once again having the faith to bring me back over here again. I thought I'd had my chips when I did the second one. I thought, well, that's it, you know. Enjoy this while it lasts, and I was shocked to get another invitation to come back. And as I said, the first time was solo, the second time was with tap dance. So I thought, well, I've got to do something a bit different again, so the idea to bring choir into the fold. So if I do return the next time, you can expect a travelling circus. So, Howard, Roberta, thank you for your generous hospitality. It really is amazing, and for everyone here to have. It's an amazing event. Some of the people in the choir here and the directors, they're composers themselves, and they know only too well the struggle that composers have. We work away in our music rooms for months on end and sometimes years, and quite often never achieve a satisfactory performance, or let alone a performance of our pieces. So I thank Choral Arts Initiative. I also thank Daniel D, who's conducted the choir tonight. Brandon Elliott, who leads Choral Arts Initiative, thank you for not ignoring my email, because I'm used to rejection as well, that's for sure. In fact, it was absolute fortune that we came across Choral Arts Initiative. I thought, well, we need a choir in the urban area that specialises in new music. I thought, what the heck, I'll Google it and see what happens. And up came Choral Arts Initiative, a choir that specialises in new music. It was perfect. So, also, all the staff at Fieldstead, who are just exemplary, and a particular mention to Anne, who fields all my emails throughout the day. Nothing's too much trouble. It's just it's really a pleasure. And there's Amy, who does travel, and Jane, and Luke, who's been fantastic with me this week, and Douglas as well. And there are many more, but I don't have time to mention them. But yeah, I really appreciate your being on hand and being so attentive. This will be a big shock when I get back to Scotland and I have to sort myself out back there. But this is really, and there'll be no sympathy from my wife. She's looking after the children for a week. So, I won't be showing her photos of sunny California too. Sound and audio, Lewis has been great on audio back there, and AG has been doing filming, and I'm really appreciative of your efforts for that. Thank you for them. Matthew Milner, I didn't see your talk because I was warming up and getting my head straight for this bit, but I gather it was fantastic. I wish I'd seen it. I will watch the video. Thank you for that. And last but not least, I'm going to thank my driver for the week. He's at the back there. He greeted me at the airport with a Scottish cap. It's called a punnet. Morgan is another example of generous Californian hospitality, and it's great to have him on my side. So Morgan, thank you for ferrying me about and waiting while I practice and deal with other things. So thank you. And thank you all for coming. This is it's great to have a chance to perform for you. So here we go, the last two pieces, In a Foreign Land and Make Music to the Lord. Thank you.
Okay, now it's working. Anyway, thank you once again. Can we give him one more hand? Find on Google. Anyway, well done. So thank you all, and please come over and see the art now. And thanks again to Matthew Milliner, who's floating around here somewhere. He's floating.